Welcome back to another episode of Georgia Sports Nation. I got some more Hawks and Braves content on tap for you guys tonight. We're going to be discussing the end of the 2023-2024 season for our Atlanta Hawks. They do not take down the Chicago Bulls in the 9-10 playing seed. The Bulls will advance to take on the Miami Heat in an injury-riddled battle in South Beach for Friday. But on the Hawks side, this game it was bad on defense, and we're gonna go into it a little bit deeper with the starting lineups and what we could have seen differently. But it was just from the start, the Hawks could never establish any type of defensive rhythm. They got back a little bit in the second and third quarters offensively. DeJounte Murray had a really good first half, but overall they just didn't find anything going on defensively, and that's what stopped them. Kobe White, career high 42 points. So we're going to get into that game a little bit more, putting the offseason into perspective and putting the whole season into perspective, but also some of the offseason expectations that we can set for the front office, for some players, just kind of overall thoughts on the season. And then for a little bit at the end, discussing how the Braves are managing to dealing with some of these injuries. Spencer Strider, the unfortunate news that he's going to be out for the season. Ozzie Albies to the IL, as well as Sean Murphy. And then previewing the Rangers series a bit at the end if we have time as well. But overall, let's get into this game, Hawks and Bulls. So initially, it starts out, and both teams are going for shot, really. I mean, you've Clint Capella really doing well in this game. He had an overall really good performance with 11 of 15 from the field. I believe he was 22 points. Was actually our second leading scorer in the game. And he honestly just took advantage of poor defense from Nikola Vucevic. And, he's been a pretty bad defender for most of his career, but it was definitely on display last night with how Capella was taking advantage of his non-athleticism, really, on the pick and roll. Trae Young was finding him on lobs throughout the entire night. So that was one good thing for the Hawks. But quickly in the first quarter, the game turned on its head. At the end of the opening frame, the Bulls went on a 16-2 run, and it was DeMar DeRozan. He was cooking the Hawks from the mid-range pretty much all night, and there really was no answer. DeAndre Hunter, I thought he made life pretty tough for DeRozan in the second half, but in the first half, they didn't really do a good job of being physical with DeRozan, making sure that all his shots were really tough. He knocked down a couple threes in this game as well, uncharacteristic of him, but he was really cooking, getting the Bulls off to a hot start. But in the first quarter, something I really want to talk about and go into specifically was the decision to bring in Mohamed Gay and Wes Matthews in the first quarter. I thought Wesley Matthews was going to see a bit of spot minutes, maybe in the fourth quarter, to kind of deal with DeRozan if the game was close to begin that final frame. But that wasn't the case. He got rotation minutes immediately, and so did Mo G. I was really shocked to see Mo G in this game, honestly. He did not look good in this one defensively. He only played 2 minutes, but defensively it wasn't good. And then I don't know. It was just a weird lineup from Quinn Snyder early in this game that I didn't really see the point of. But that lineup struggled. The Hawks give up that 16-2 run to end the first quarter. They're down 40-22, 40 points to the Bulls in the opening quarter. That just cannot happen. The Hawks are a better offensive team on paper, and throughout the entire year they've been as well. But DeMar DeRozan and Kobe White, those main two guys just could not miss in that opening frame. They're really going well. DeRozan had 11 in that first quarter, but everything for the Hawks defensively stemmed from the point of attack, from up top. And you guys know my theory. Point of attack defense, in my opinion, is the most important part of team defense throughout in the entire NBA. Kobe White was getting middle, attacking the seams of the defense all night. DeRozan, who really wasn't getting to the rim much. It was more about that deadly mid-range shooting. But Vucevic was also getting there, and I don't know. It was just a rough performance defensively. And one of the culprits of that was the starting lineup that Quinn Snyder ran out with. I was a proponent of this lineup, though. He went out with Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Bogdan Bogdanovic, a little wrinkle there, DeAndre Hunter at the 4, and then obviously Clint Capella starting at the 5. I said before this game, on our Sports Ethos Hawks podcast. Make sure you guys are following that. By the way, we're going to have a ton of off-season content for you guys there. I said that the Hawks are going to need to make this game a shootout. They're going to have to win the three-point battle. They're going to have to make this game like, upper teens, 120s in scoring for them to win. And they couldn't do it. Their offense could not get going. The defense from the Bulls early was definitely getting to them. The ball pressure from Alex Caruso and Ayu Dosunmu specifically, I thought bothered Trae Young early. And he just did not look like himself in this game at all, Trae Young. He was playing hurt. It was pretty clear, and they said on the broadcast as well, he didn't need to play with the brace, but he took it off because the medical staff allowed him to do it. But he didn't feel comfortable with it because if he did anything to that finger again, he'd need another surgery, and it would take an even longer recovering time. So I shout out Trae for taking that off and trying to give his team the win, but definitely kind of hindering himself there a little bit with that brace and putting him in danger of missing even more time if he would have gotten hurt without it. But Kel Bishop in the chat says, what are we going to do? I'm going to miss chopping up about our underwhelming little Hawks team this offseason. I know, man. You're going to have to wait until October till the Atlanta Hawks play some basketball again. Well, they will have summer league and preseason, but it seems a long ways away. But this is the big number right here. 70 points in the paint for the Chicago Bulls. That is an absurd number. But the reason the Hawks didn't go with Trae, Bogey, and DeJounte lineups in the regular season was for this very reason. That lineup cannot guard anybody and stop them from getting middle, stop them from getting to the rim. And while Clint Capella's a good defender, he's just not the elite, great rim protector that he once was. He's a good one, but he's not what he once was. And there's still a lot of work to be done for this team to find out the right lineup combinations, because Trae and DeJounte overall just did not play well when they were with each other on the floor. When it was one of them throughout the entire season, with Bogey, they played well, but when they ever the lineups, the net rating, the plus minus, when those two were on the floor together, it just was not good. And Xavier, the draft lottery is May 12th, and by the way, tonight's game is crucial for the Hawks because the Pelicans are Kings. If the Kings win, the Hawks will get their first round pick this season, and it'll be a pretty good pick. That was from the Kevin Huerter trade. So even though Hawks fans don't necessarily have a game to watch that the Hawks will be playing in, this is an important game for Hawks fans to just keep an eye on with the result, because it could put the Hawks in a significantly better position depending on what they do this offseason. But going to the game a little bit more, in the second quarter, we got a weird sequence here. Andre Drummond runs into Alex Caruso when he's coming back down the court, and he steps on his ankle. Caruso never really looked the same. He stayed in the game. Well, he came out, went to the locker room, but then tried to come back into the game. He wasn't right. Billy Donovan pulled the plug after that. But, yeah, Andre Drummond, he's been sabotaging his own team lately. He tried to dunk Torrey Craig, and he missed that Steph alley-oop. He steps on Alex Caruso's foot. This is not the greatest look for Andre Drummond recently here to end the season. But the difference in the second quarter came on offense for the Hawks. DeJounte Murray really led the way. He led a 9-0 run early for the Hawks, and that would extend to 14-2 before DeMar DeRozan came back in. The Hawks cut the lead down to 4, but this was the beginning of the second quarter and the beginning of the third quarter were really the only times where it felt like the Hawks had a consistent momentum on offense. The biggest difference was the three-point arc. Garrison Matthews also hit a 3 during that stretch. And early in the second quarter, the Hawks were shooting threes and making threes. 4 of 6 from 3 midway through the second frame, but just 1 of 9 from 3 in the first quarter. That's the biggest difference there in the game for me. Overall, the Bulls won the three-point battle. They shot 42% from 3, 11 of 26. The Hawks made the same amount, 11, but took 37. And when you're the Hawks, the better offensive team, when you lose the three-point line like that against a better defensive team, that's not going to be a recipe for winning. And even though the Bulls overall, look at their defensive rating, I think they ended 22nd for the season. It's not great, obviously, but something they were elite at, and the best in the NBA, is allowing opponents to get nothing in the paint. Opponents only attempted 45.9 points in the paint per game against Chicago this season, which ranked number 1 in the league. So you've got guys like Javon Carter, Ayo Dosunmu, Alex Caruso, and Kobe White's a capable defender himself. All of those guys really just pack the paint. They don't allow anything. Vucevic is not the greatest defender, so they definitely need that. But it's worked defensively for the Bulls in this game. The Hawks had a lot of trouble breaking the paint early on before this run in the second quarter. But right after they made it a 4-point game, the Bulls go on another run. They stretch it out to a 7-point lead. DeMar comes back in, gets a bucket. Ayo Dosunmu hits a 3. And then the Bulls, before you know it, they're back up 14 points after a block from Chicago, and then DeRozan takes it all the way. And yeah, we had no answer for Kobe. Made him look like Kobe. Yeah, that's facts. Career high for Kobe White. Shout out to him. Great game. Took advantage of some shoddy Hawks defense. But man, it was not fun to watch if you're a Hawks fan there. But something about Kobe White, and Grant Shirley pointed this out on Twitter. The way he was picking up the ball, using his dribble, it kind of spinning into the lane, crafty layups. He looked like prime Kyrie out there. And I could see where Grant thought that. He was just really shifty, and the Hawks had no answer for him. But I don't know. The end of the second quarter kind of felt like the Hawks were getting back into it. They ended the quarter on a 12-2 run to cut the lead back to 3. Bogey and Trey kind of led that, but then momentum for the Bulls right into halftime. Caruso hits a 3. They make it a 6-point lead. And if you're the Hawks, you were down 18 points in the first quarter. If you're only down 6 on the road in an elimination game, and the offense played, they got 67 points at the half, but 45 of those came in the second. When you had a 22-point opening quarter and you're only down 6, if you're the Hawks, you got to feel pretty fortunate and that you're in this game. Some highlights in the first half: DeJounte Murray had 23. Capella had 16 points and 7 rebounds already. And DeMar DeRozan and Kobe White, as they did for the entire game, led the way for Chicago. 18 for DeMar and 17 for Kobe. But yeah, biggest thing, Hawks won the second quarter 45-33, getting them back in it. And they start the quarter as well. They start the quarter well after coming out of halftime too. You have the Bulls really looked like they were kind of just out of sorts. They couldn't develop a consistent offensive rhythm, and the Hawks just kept coming at them. It was a 4-point game before you know it, and then DeJounte Murray detonates on the rim, postering Vucevic. It makes it a 1-possession game. Right after that, the Hawks cut it to 2, but the Bulls counter. 9-0 run, and Kobe White really led that charge. He just got to the rim whenever he wanted. And after that 9-0 run, after the Hawks cut it to a 1-possession game, this game was over. Atlanta never fully recovered. Kobe White was getting to the rim whenever he wants. Like I said, they extended the lead to 105-87 on a 17-2 extended run. It was not pretty, the end of the third quarter for the Hawks. And when you put this game into entire perspective, the Hawks had one good quarter, like I said before, and this was the only quarter they maintained success throughout. They had a 45-point second quarter. That was the only quarter they scored over 30 points. Compared to the Bulls, they scored over 33 points in every quarter except one, which is the fourth. They scored 21, and the game was over by then. That just simply can't happen if you're an offense-first team like Atlanta, and it did. That was my biggest key for them to – well, not the key to them to lose the game, the biggest reason why they fell so badly in this game. On defense, though, it's the points in the paint. The Hawks could not prevent Ayo Dosunmu, Kobe White, DeMar DeRozan from getting to the middle, and in transition too. There were a couple times where Dosunmu just took it to the lane right when there was just no defense coming after a made basket. That's just simply unacceptable from the Hawks. That cannot happen. And I'm sure the transition defense was something that you can't really you can't really have it in this type of situation. But in the fourth quarter, the Bulls just kept it a 20-point game pretty much, and it was pretty much over. 30 Kobe White got 37 points on a really deep three, and before you know it, it was 121-100 with 6 minutes left. And in typical fashion for the season, Quinn Snyder left the starters out there for the whole game for fourth quarter for a long time, but there was no coming back from this one. And yeah, it was pretty much over by then. Onto some type of putting the season into a perspective. It's got to be viewed as a disappointment, in my opinion, especially with the expectations coming in. Obviously, last season the Hawks were in the play-in, but with Quinn Snyder, with DeJounte Murray in his second season, and the emergence of Jalen Johnson, all that stuff said, you've got to feel like this season should have gone better. You can point to a ton of different things, but for me, the number one thing is there was health problems. The Hawks were missing so many wings, and the wing depth on this team was the least depth out of any position. Jalen Johnson goes down. DeAndre Hunter has to play a ton of minutes. He then goes down. Saddiq Bey then goes down, and you're playing Garrison Matthews. Vit Krejci had an emergence for the Hawks, but he wasn't eligible to play in that game. And did want to speak on that for a moment, because as far as an on-court perspective. Hold on, sorry. Sorry about that, guys. There's a problem with with the alarm there. But all right, we're back. I was talking about Vit Krejci, and Vit, from an encore perspective, obviously helps the Hawks a ton. But when you think about it from a financial perspective, there was incentive for Vit Krejci to definitely wait until the free agency to sign a long-term contract with the Hawks, if that is indeed his goals. So, for example, let's say Vit Krejci signs a 3-year deal with the Hawks, and they extend him throughout the entire season. That first season on that contract will be the last month. Will be the last month and a half of this season, or which in this case just one game, the play. If you use one of those years on that contract, he might not have wanted that, and the Hawks might not have wanted that either. So there's logical reasoning to be said about how that one year might have hurt the Hawks financially. But yeah, on court, they definitely miss Vit's playmaking, definitely his creation, just making the right play, kind of being that just steady ball handler that doesn't turn the ball over too much. But he stepped up huge this season. So did Garrison Matthews, honestly. Overall, Garrison Matthews had a career year, as did a lot of Hawks. DeAndre Hunter, DeJounte Murray, Jalen Johnson, obviously. Garrison, Vit, Saddiq struggled for most of shooting the ball. But offensively, there were a ton of guys that Quinn Snyder really put his imprint on and helped them have offensive, career years offensively. But yeah, Markeith, the front office gets the brunt of the blame in my book for the lack of wing depth. Yeah, and there was that was the biggest thing that derailed the Hawks season in my eyes the most. But also the injury to Trae Young, and obviously there's you could think of, oh, the Hawks better with Trae Young or the Hawks better without him. I'm not with that. The Hawks, Trae Young is on this team. He is the best player on this team. They are better with him. That is my stance. But the front office wouldn't be doing their due diligence if they just said, okay, let's run it back with Trae and DeJounte in the same core, because we think this team can do something if they're continuing to be fully healthy. I don't think that's a wise decision. In my opinion, you really have to split up. You really have to split up Trey and DeJounte this season because number one, like I said, their net ratings when they're on the court together is pretty bad, and it's the worst out of any two-man lineups. Even the Hawks' best front court lineup, which was Jalen and Onyeka Okongwu, given it's still kind of a shortened sample size with how much time they missed this season, that was their best two-man lineup. With DeJounte Murray and Trae Young on the floor with those guys, it was still a negative in net rating. And that's just kind of evident of DeJounte and Trae just not really working well together. And you expect a major retool or minor retool. For me, I think there has to be significant changes done. I don't think the Hawks can go into a rebuild this season because, like I've been saying for months now, they don't own their own pick. If they decide to trade Trae Young, trade DeJounte, trade everybody, and just build completely around Jalen and Kobe Buffkin, obviously the organization is high on Muhammad Gay. If that happens, I think that's a mistake because this season they don't own it. Next offseason, they don't have their own pick. So if they're bad next season, there is no incentive to tank. And there's that word again, tank. But that's essentially what they'd be doing. They do not have their own pick, and it's unprotected to the Spurs. So if I know some fans are in the market to trade Trae. If that's the case, you need to wait, in my opinion, till next season. You cannot trade Trae this offseason unless you get like 6 unprotected first-round picks. I know that's crazy, but it would have to be along those lines of a number of picks because the Hawks are not sitting on a ton of picks right now. You can't tank next season and be bad for a pick that you don't have. I mean, because the reason for tanking would be nothing. So that's my biggest thing there. But yeah, I think because you can't trade Trae Young till next offseason, like I said, I think that's true. I don't think the organization will look to. You got to trade DeJounte Murray. You got to look to trade him this offseason, in my opinion. You also have to shop Bogey. Even though I love Bogey, the way that his season went this year, had a career year, one of the leading 6 men of the year candidates. His value is probably high. You got to look what you can get for him. But DeAndre Hunter too, Clint Capella. I would expect at least 2 of these starters probably change, whether it's a combination of DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter, Clint Capella. I'm assuming Trae Young and Jalen Johnson will be staying put and being Hawks at the beginning of next season. But for me, DeJounte Murray, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Clint Capella, DeAndre Hunter, all 4 of those guys are definitely going to be subject in trade talks throughout the entire season, it seems like. You'll be helping this. Exactly. And for everybody who disagrees with me, I mean, this is coming from a Mavericks fan. If the Hawks tank, they will be helping the Spurs. They won't help themselves. That's why you just can't enter a rebuild until next season. So if you really want to go for it, if the organization thinks Trae and Jalen is still the perfect way to rebuild this team, then you really need to go for it this season and get a winning record. Put a good team out there, put a good product on the floor, because you know that you don't own your pick next draft. It's one of the biggest off seasons in the last probably decade plus for the Hawks right now because of the fallout from the Murray trade, because it hasn't worked so far. And when you give up that many picks, you expect to be better. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. The Hawks were worse. Now, this is me not saying DeJounte is a good player. He's a great player. When you put him at point guard, it's just like I've said before. DeJounte by himself with Bogey and Trae by himself with Bogey. Both of those numbers, you look at the net rating, you look at the plus minus, you look at all those stats, offensive rating. Defensive rating is even better with Bogey than just with one of those guys. Every single thing points to the team being better without Trae Young and DeJounte Murray sharing the floor at the same time. So that's why I think you need to explore trading DeJounte, and it can't be Trae until next season. So that kind of defaults to exploring moves for DeJounte Murray. Now, a lot of Hawks fans think the Pelicans, it's just, I know, it is just logical thinking, Frank, but apparently I'm obsessed with Trae Young if I keep saying this. I don't understand it. But I digress. The Hawks definitely have to make some major changes. They cannot run this team back. It's been 3 playing years in a row, yes, but two years where they expected to get better and they've only gotten worse. That means there has to be significant changes. So you've got to look at Landry Fields, the front office, Kyle Korver, all these guys. What are they going to do this offseason? Who knows? I think the Pelicans are really interested in DeJounte Murray. I think they definitely need a player like Murray at point guard to kind of organize their offense. Brandon Ingram has been mentioned as a name that could come back to the Hawks. And if they could snag Herb Jones from the Pelicans, I don't think they'll move him. If they could get even Trey Murphy too, that would be really good. But Brandon Ingram, some type of combination with DeJounte Murray, Herb Jones, or Trey Murphy. You could throw in Onyeka Okongwu in that deal maybe, but that is a lot. That would be a tough decision for Landry Fields, especially with how they view Onyeka so far. But that turf toe that Onyeka has definitely a little bit concerning that it flared back up again. Hopefully he could get that fixed and it's not some type of long-term injury. I'm not really concerned. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on this too in the chat. I'm not concerned with Jalen's long-term health. I know some fans are, but with the full offseason coming up, I'm sure he'll be on a training regimen and stuff like that for that. I'm not really worried about his long-term health with that ankle after having one of them was a grade 2, obviously, but having 2 grade 1 ankle sprains and then a week later spraining it and getting a grade 2, that's not rare. The more you sprain your ankle, the more it's turned to happen. So that didn't surprise me too much there. Yeah, Mike asks what happened to Quinn. Disappointing. Yeah, here's my thing. Like, I think there's always be a Quinn Snyder, Nate McMillan debate throughout Hawks Twitter this season. That only naturally happened just because the Hawks were worse with Quinn Snyder. I don't think that Nate McMillan was going to be the coach to lead this team to the championship. I just think he and Trae Young have very clashing play styles. Regardless of what their relationship was, I'm not going to speak on that. But I just think that their play styles don't suit each other. And what Quinn Snyder did to this offense, so many guys had career seasons. You can't ignore that. But I didn't expect this offense. I didn't expect the defense to get worse. I expected it to improve, but just a little bit. And the defense didn't improve at all. And that's basically why you get a worse season with the injuries combined with that bad defense. The offense was really good. But when Trae Young went down, the offense fell from being elite, top 5, to being top 12, top 13. If you look at offensive rating for the total season, the Hawks ended for the 2023-2024 season offensive rating. The Hawks ended outside the top 10 at number 12. They were top 5 for almost the majority of the whole calendar 2023 year and January before Trae Young went down. That's why when I said it's pretty much what happened in the Bulls game, the Hawks have to make this a shootout. They have to win this game from the 3-point line, from the free throw line, from a shooting percentage standpoint, and everything, because there was no way they were going to beat the defense of the Bulls, and they couldn't get that done. Marquis says, I agree with you on the fact that the Hawks need to make major changes, but do you trust the front office to make those major changes for the better? Because I sure as heck don't trust them at all. Whether I trust them or not, I really don't know. All I know is that I think they need to make changes. It's honestly hard to say I trust them just because the Murray trade obviously didn't work out. But I don't know. It's hard to say can I trust them or not, because I think they need to do it regardless. You know what I mean? And then Frank says, fair to say the blame could be partially put on OO for not taking that extra. He had a slow start to the season for sure, but what sucks is when he finally started to round into form, when the calendar switched to 2024, then he gets hurt right at the beginning of February. He had a really good stretch of games when Clint Capella got hurt with his adductor strain, when he was out for about a week and a half. Onyeka really shined in those minutes when he got 30 minutes a night, like I've been saying for years now. You give him 30-plus minutes, he'll get more rebounds. He'll not get into foul trouble because he doesn't have to be less aggressive. He doesn't have to force it. And I think, the slow start of the year, definitely you could place blame on Okongwu for that. But overall, I liked what I saw from him in the second half of the season. Just wish he was healthy. Yeah, this was this was a disappointing season overall. Unless, like for Quinn Snyder, I think for most of the time the players want to play with him. It seems like most of the guys have a good relationship with him, and he and Trae Young have the exact same play style. That's what makes me believe the Hawks would never go the route of building around DeJounte Murray and Jalen Johnson. In my opinion, I don't think that's a smart move because Jalen is only 22. DeJounte Murray, I think he's already 28. And when you're building around a 28 and 22-year-old, those timelines just not going to match up. Like that's just not a good idea. And it's not because their talents aren't good enough, but it's simply, yeah. I think even though you have Hunter with a career year offensively, DeJounte Murray career year offensively, I already listed a ton of these guys. Garrison Matthews, um, you know, so many guys really stepped up offensively across the board this season. The defense was just so bad, and when Trae Young went down, the offense turned from elite to okay. And when you have an okay defense and okay offense and terrible defense, that is not grounds for success. And that's what I think ultimately put the Hawks behind the 8 ball for the majority of this season. I do want to discuss a little bit about the Braves before we head out here, because there's been some big news. I've missed a couple of shows in the past few weeks due to some traveling issues, but Spencer Strider, he's going to miss the whole season. He did not get Tommy John surgery, but he did have surgery to repair his UCL. He's going to be ready for the start of the 2025 season. Which is what was reported. But this is obviously a huge loss. The Braves ace Max Fried has struggled to start the season, but Chris Sale, Ronaldo Lopez, Charlie Morton, whether it's Darius Vines, Alan Winan, some of these guys, they have to step up. They have to step up to try to make to try to cover up the absence for Strider. Good news is the Hawks are, of course I said the Hawks. The Braves are still winning games. They just came back up. They're going after the Texas Rangers now, but they swept the Houston Astros to 3 games. Marcell Ozuna continues to absolutely tear the cover off the ball. And yeah, I'm going to take my credit for calling it the fact that he's still a really good hitter. I've always believed in Marcell for that he would bounce back. But for other injuries, Ozzy Albies with a toe sprain, he's going to go. He's on the IL, so you'll have Luis Guillorme, and then also David Fletcher was called up to be the backup. So you'll have those guys really alternating between second base, and then Sean Murphy updates. He's probably not that close. Oblique injuries, especially for a catcher, they can be tough. When you're in a position that physically demanding and bending down, squatting down, throwing from your knees, like all that stuff that a catcher has to do, it's going to take a lot to get back from an oblique injury. Even though it was grade 1, which is the best case scenario, like Brian Snitker said, it's still a long recovery time, especially when you factor in that he's a catcher. So I would say probably along close to like 3 weeks left for Sean Murphy to get back to his old self and get back to the field. So the Hawks, why am I saying the Hawks? The Braves are still going to need to get that production from Travis d'Arnaud. Chadwick Tromp has had a couple of really good games lately. He's hitting the ball well, line drives both fields. He had a double to right center and left center a couple of days ago, which was just huge for him. But the offense continues to rake. Ronald finally hit his first home run. He's getting back to his timing. Maybe the knee thing that happened in spring training helped, hindered a little bit of a fast start for him. But he's slowly getting back. Obviously, Ozzy was doing well before he got back. Olsen, Riley, these guys continue to play well. Marcell Ozuna, obviously, I mentioned him before. He might get Player of the Month if he keeps doing this. He's just absurd. I think he's tied for the league in homers, and he's hitting with for average 2, OPS above 1,000. He's just tearing. The ball looks like a beach ball to him right now. Orlando Arcia has had a great start to the season. Similar to last year, even better, honestly. He's among the leaders in doubles, top 5. And Guillorme hasn't been the best from an offensive perspective, but he's making the plays in the field. And then Travis d'Arnaud and Chadwick Tromp. Tromp, I saw a couple Braves fans saying, "Oh, Chadwick Tromp sucks. He needs to be better." This is the Braves' 3rd string catcher. And what else do you want me to do? It's kind of like how a ton of Hawks fans just say Trent Forrest sucks. Oh, he's terrible. He's terrible. He's a fourth string point guard. And you got to put that into perspective as well. But Travis Darno has had a couple of nice hits lately. He's kind of rounding back into form. So the Braves are picking up from these injuries, which is the best possible thing. Keep on winning, and that'll make these guys still try their hardest. Especially these three guys are all stars. All three of these guys listed that are down with injuries. So hopefully that keeps going. With as far as the pitching goes, Charlie Morton and Max Fried, both of those guys are really the only guys who've had really slow starts to the season. Ronaldo Lopez has been incredible. Only one earned run so far. Chris Sale has been pretty good as well. But Charlie Morton's had a lot of trouble pitching with the lead, which is kind of weird. He's obviously has his hits batsman here and there. He'll give up a homer or two. But the walks and the high average against is something you don't normally see from Charlie Morton. Obviously, with his age, he is getting up there. I think he's 40 now. So definitely keep an eye on that throughout the season. But for Max Fried, the strangest thing for Max's season this year has to be the first inning troubles. Normally, he's been lights out in the first inning throughout his entire career, but he'll put the Braves behind the 8-ball early, and that's not really a great sign. They'll have to play from behind. And this offense that was historically great last year has been really good again this year. First in average OPS for the MLB. These guys have been doing so much getting the Braves back into these games. Against the Arizona Diamondbacks a few weeks ago, the Braves were down 6 runs in 2 of those games. They came back and won. In Houston, you see, yes, the Braves were up in most of those games, but even in the 9th inning, they were adding on. Orlando Arcia with the game-winning single in the top of the 10th inning after the Braves were actually down 4-2 going into the 8th in that game. They come back, seal that win, get the sweep in Houston, and now on to Texas Rangers. This team is just chugging along, and hopefully they can maintain this pace. With these injuries, they're gonna need to, because if any more guys come out, it might get ugly soon. And by ugly, by the Brave standards, it means probably losing like a series or two and everybody panicking, but they'll be okay because they're just so good. So hopefully this team can continue this run they're on. But now it's gonna be the Braves for a long time, until I guess the Falcons and the Hawks get back started, because unfortunately the Hawks season ended a lot earlier than a lot of us, I'm sure, expected. That was October last year. But thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Georgia Sports Nation. Hopefully, we should be back here for another episode next week, same time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.